Hello and welcome back to the Unfiltered Autistic Podcast. And this week on the podcast, I am joined by developmental psychologist Dr. Amy Laurent and Dr. Jacquelyn Fede. You may know them as the co-founders of Autism Level Up. Together, their energy framework has transformed how many of us now understand energy regulation. And if you've ever heard me talk about regulation, you'll have definitely heard me talk about their absolutely phenomenal energy framework. It's an incredible resource that I have used. I couldn't even tell you how many times in a personal capacity as a parent, as an autistic person, but also one that I recommend, I would say, every day in my professional practice. You'll see that I have my own personal copy and also, also went out and purchased a second copy that I can, I suppose, show to professionals when I'm out and about delivering training in person, because I suppose from my perspective, this is my own resource that I just love to write all over and annotate. And really, I often say, and you'll hear me say this on the podcast, I write down I agree when I'm reading this incredible framework, because I do. It has been transformative in my own personal capacity as a parent, and I've seen in real world context, in schools, in organizations, in family homes, how understanding regulation through an energy framework has really transformed the lives of so many individuals. So let's get on with the podcast and let's hear from the incredible duo, Dr. Amy Laurent and Dr. Jacquelyn Fede. Hello, and you're welcome back to this week's podcast. And I am beyond, I want to say, excited, thrilled, delighted to have the incredible duo from Autism Level Up. So I might ask yourselves to introduce yourself more formally. Anyone that's listening to the podcast will have heard me introduce you just a moment ago. But if you want to maybe tell everyone a little bit about yourselves, and maybe we'll move off then to talk about your incredible resource that I recommend to everyone and everywhere I go, your incredible energy framework.
Thank you for having us. We are thrilled to be here. I am Amy. And this is Jacquelyn, or Jack. We together are Autism Level Up, a duo of developmental psychologists who are here to level up all things and create resources that are actually useful and usable and can be like sustained in practice and help people. I am ADHD, which we are sure will come through as we're talking today. And Jacquelyn's autistic.
And I do speak, but Amy does all my introductions for me.
Sounds like a great plan to me. So I suppose just to ask yourselves then, in relation to the energy framework, I suppose, where did this whole concept come from? So if you'd like to, would you like to chit chat a little bit about how this framework came together, or how you, I suppose, moved towards this concept of energy regulation?
It's a great question.
Yeah, it really starts from kind of my own autistic burnout, to be honest. I went through a time where I had my childhood. My life was a great lineup for my autistic profile. My school, I played very high level soccer. I was a goalkeeper. I threw myself into the ground hundreds of times a day, over and over, which for me was great. When all of that went away and I ended up in my first full-time job, big mismatch. And it wasn't more than 2 weeks before I was basically coming home every single day and just smashing things, breaking things, kicking through things, or shutting down completely, sleeping for more than 26 hours sometimes. And I didn't know. I was undiagnosed. And I had such a good match when I was little, which was lucky, but also unlucky, because I didn't know all of those things around me as needs, as supports that were helping me engage with everything. And so I was just so lost. And I went on like that for months and months and months. And it wasn't until many months later, of like the last resort, when I finally thought, maybe I need someone else to help me, which is not a normal thought process for me. And I sent a picture of like a hole that I had kicked through a door to Amy and just said, LOL, I did this. And that's where my own diagnosis journey came, but it's where we started working together for me to put my life back together. And I had been masking big time to try to figure out this environment. And Amy's whole line of work for her entire life was emotional regulation. And she realized very quickly that emotion was never something that resonated for me, never something I found authentic. And so to use that in my regulation, which was a huge need, was going to just be another layer of a mask that we were going to try to be taking off. It didn't make sense. But energy is something that I've always been able to think about inside my body. To me, it feels more concrete, less abstract. It's observable, like I have proof of it. Like I can see what my body is doing. I can feel what my body is doing. I know if I'm lacking energy. I know if it's surging. I know if it's all going towards one thing or if it's spread out all over the place. And so that to me was authentic. And so flash forward sometime when I'm really fully recovered and have my supports in place again, we started working together to create tools, and we made energy the base of it. Not to say that emotion is wrong, but emotion is a more complex, socially nuanced layer on top of kind of the physiological arousal that's going on in the body. And if you are wired different socially,
which you are,
that whole shared understanding of I'm telling you I feel this thing and I believe you know what that thing is, so therefore you know how I feel, like that's the regulatory piece. If I don't buy it for myself, there's no way you can regulate me. There's no way that process can happen. So the first thing to be done is to understand that you just have to find the language that feels authentic to you, or there can't be a shared understanding. And that was a long answer for me.
I'm just going to add one thing on it. It really wasn't a big leap from emotional regulation to energy, because when you look at any of the developmental literature, they talk about physiological arousal and emotion intertwined and impacting one another. And when it became clear to me that emotion wasn't accessible to you and it was not going to be helpful in any way and actually might cause further dysregulation because of masking, it was really easy to strip that away and just focus on what was going to work. And what we're finding is that it works for a lot of people. Actually, it works for pretty much everybody, regardless of neurotype.
And one of the resources I first came across belonged to yourselves was All the Fields. I was trying to support I always call my children gorgeous and lovely because they absolutely are. So my gorgeous Jack, he would be, I suppose he has the capacity to use mouth words, but he also has an intellectual disability. So sometimes he finds word finding to say how he feels a little bit tricky. That's probably the alexithymia interception differences as well. But I remember coming across All the Fields. I think it could have been, I'm going to say around pandemic time. Maybe it was a little bit pre, I could be wrong with the timeline, but
no,
I feel like I
we
watched
released
something
it
on
like 2020, 2021.
Yeah, I watched something on YouTube and I was like, this is amazing. And I downloaded the app. And then I was trying to help, because again, I'm autistic myself, I was trying to help Jack figure it out. And then he started, now he used his own words, but he was saying for if he's feeling anxious now, he'll say, I've got, he'll say, I have a spicy tummy. My tummy's very spicy now, Mom. Or if he's excited, he'll be like, oh, the popcorn's popping, Mom. I'm really happy now. So it was through, again, your incredible insights, but your lived experience, I suppose, Jack, that has influenced for families like my own and your incredible framework as well, Amy, that has given Jack the tools to be able to say how he's feeling. Because again, he would find the word finding really tricky. And I think autistically, I couldn't figure out how can I help him find the way. And then I was, as I suppose everyone was during the pandemic, I was watching everything and learning everything I could, YouTube. And I was listening to yourselves. I probably watched it a bit. So if you got like lots of views, it was probably me. Because I was like, oh, this is amazing. How will I use all of this incredible information? So I suppose that's where my journey started with Autism Level Up, was trying to help my son. And then I started to follow yourselves on Facebook and Instagram, but primarily Facebook, because you're like prolific with all of your great resources and links. And even one you shared, it could have been the other day, I don't have it here, I think it's over there, it was something about hand over hand you shared recently, or maybe it was a little while ago. And then I was like, oh my God, this needs to go into all the schools and everybody needs to know that there are all, because I think sometimes people might think there's only one way, but there's lots of different ways to support people, and there's lots of incredible neuroaffirmative ways. I suppose moving on then from, I suppose, the initial, okay, we're going to get started, maybe this is what we want to do. I suppose, how did you then maybe decide on this monster of a resource? I say monster really positively. Like, how did you go from, I think we need to do this, and now you're like helping millions of people all over the world with this incredible framework? So I suppose, was that the impetus then, I suppose, your own kind of experiences, Jack, and then you kind of teamed up then to work on this together?
So obviously I've worked with autistic individuals for quite some time, and then it just became through supporting Jacquelyn, and it kind of infusing her brilliance. I will tell anybody who asks, this is the best work that I have ever done, like, the most important work I've ever done. But as we started creating tools, like at first we created that energy meter, which some people might be familiar with, but it's basically ranges from 6 levels. And you've got a really high energy at the top. Oh, look, she's got things coming out. You've got a really high energy at the top. And so like a maxed out and frenzied, and then a sleep at the bottom, and then kind of these physiological states or levels in between, and trying to look for a match or a mismatch. Like if you're amped up and fidgety, but the activity you're in, amped up and fidgety is a good fit for, like this, right? I'm amped up and fidgety is a good fit. I'm well regulated, even though I've got a ton of energy, right? So what it allowed us to do was kind of like remove that judgment piece about high is always bad or low is always bad, and you've got to be in the middle. It was, no, everything fits somewhere sometime. It's just, do you have it at the right time? And like when we started to introduce that concept of match and mismatch, we decided that people needed tools behind it to really understand this kind of very simple thing. So we started building out a suite of other tools, including like, what does it look like when I'm amped up and fidgety versus what does it look like when you're amped up and fidgety versus what does it look like when you're amped up and fidgety, so people can start reading energy correctly. And anyway, so we developed a bunch of tools, and then people were like, we love all these tools, but they really wanted them all in one place. And so that's where the manual actually came from, was a community ask of, hey, can you make this even more accessible to us in a different way?
And like, I love all these tools, but how do I use them together in a school? Or how do I start someone on them? How do I use them for someone who's minimally verbal?
Right.
Like all these questions that we decided should be in one place. And of course, in our own true style, it is a pick your own adventure manual. So you can use it how you need it.
But that makes it probably even more authentic to the individual, because it's exactly what you need, as opposed to being so prescriptive that it nearly takes away what you're trying to achieve, which is individualized regulation supports. It ends up being like too concrete, if that makes sense. So that's amazing.
Right.
So I suppose one of the things that I did, I was chatting to you about it earlier, was for my gorgeous Jack, is that now, again, this is just what I did. Everyone will use all of these incredible resources in their own way. But I like to support Jack because he also has what's referred to as a PDA profile, for him to be very much focused on what he needs, and he's in control, and it's his autonomy. So he also happens to love blue, and you have the incredible bumper. So we've been using lots of resources belong to yourselves for years. But I put this together for Jack so that when he goes into secondary, that he can take out his own framework. He can use the pieces that suit him best. Again, I have to add in the piece on all the fields, because sometimes I print them out and they get a little bit, they get thrown around the house, being honest, because he loves to throw things, which is great, but then I have to laminate them again. But I suppose one of the things that I also loved about your resources is that you can download a lot of these tools from the website already, which is one of the ones, if you can see on camera and you're watching the video format of the podcast, is I downloaded the Dino piece, or the Dino energy meter, because Jack absolutely loves dinosaurs. I suppose that's what I wanted to ask you is about this, because I thought, how did you know? Like, you've so many, also you've different languages available, you've like lots of, I'm going to say, did I see a Pokemon? Do you have like a strong connection with Star Wars? I feel like I saw lots of, is it Star Wars? I feel like,
Well,
yeah,
both of us,
there was some
yeah.
pretty cool ones there as well. So I was like, how did you know to do this? Like, sorry, I'm just so like, but how did your brain know to do this? Like, it was such an incredible idea. Like, how did you know, like, or where did that idea come from? Sorry, my brain is like, how did you know? But like, how did you know that this is what people need? Because this makes more sense than like a load of smiley faces, which I mean can absolutely work for lots of people.
Which we also have.
Yes,
we do.
Yeah, which you do, which I actually also have printed out in Jack's resource, which also can be very beneficial. But I just wonder, like, for people listening, being like, but how does that, like, so I have this here as well for him, so, or for anyone, say, supporting him. I don't know if you see that. But I suppose my question to you is, where does that conceptualization come from? Because it's so clever and like so like intuitive for everyone, like.
So there's a reason why it's so clever, because it's not just us.
Yes.
We have so many meters. Actually, we have a Google Drive just full of iterations of energy meters. And we have created many, but most of those special interest kind of topic meters have come from people who started using energy and then made it their own and submitted it back to us. So it's in the language of someone who figured it out for themselves. And this is a wonderful thing and also a caution. We want people to use them and access them. And as ideas and present them to their children or try them out for themselves, but we also want people to individualize it for themselves. We want people to make sure someone knows this is a starting point. Like, you tell me if this fits your conceptualization of that character or that theme. And what we also always say about those meters is it's more important to change the meter for developmental accessibility. Like, if someone can't handle 6 levels, that can be a lot of choices, make it 3. We have like a circle meter because we had someone who was biased by always picking the top of a list. And so they couldn't have it in that list format. Like, the format for accessibility is more important. And then be cautious about coming in with somebody's interest or passion. If you're introducing it to someone else, energy might be a better fit for someone. It might be what they need, but it's still work. It's still a developmental skill that they're going to have to work on. So we want their consent in that topic. And so if they start bringing in the dinosaurs, the characters, yeah, then of course we want to support them in creating that. But we usually start with something generic. But for ideas, for a starting point, if someone's moving in that direction, that Google Drive is a gold mine. Yes.
Oh yeah, I think I could have, maybe that's where I stumbled across all the things. It's like all the fields. It's like I found all the things in the Google Drive folder, but there's so much inspiration there, I suppose, is what you're saying. That yes, these are really good starting places, but the key is that eye for individualization, isn't it? That really to get it exactly right for everyone's individual profile. That yes, these are great tools, but again, I suppose that's why you've made the incredible framework the way that you have. It's kind of I feel like it's like a pathway to your own regulation. You stop off and drop off wherever you feel is appropriate for yourself, and you use the tools. Yeah, I just find it again fascinating. For anyone listening, I actually now own 2 copies of this incredible resource. If you're watching the video format, you'll see that I love books, but I cherish my books. And same way that you mentioned there, Jack, about like special interest and passion interest, like your incredible resources are definitely a passion interest of mine. But I also bought a second copy for when I deliver like in-person training, because I'm always recommending books. And although I often bring many other books, I don't like to hand around my Autism Level Up book. I just think it's phenomenal. And I like, as you were saying there, to individualize the resource. I don't know if there's any page where you see my writing, but you can just see I've been scribbling, where I'm like, I agree. And then I'm like, who am I agreeing with? I'm agreeing with myself. But I am. I do think, I mean, I'm agreeing with yourselves, although it's, I don't know, you're not going to hear my thoughts from America to Ireland. But I suppose for anyone listening, that's why I really love this resource. And I know it's available, isn't it, from Outside the Box Learning Resources. Again, it's a phenomenal organization, have like all phenomenal neuroaffirmative resources. But I suppose a funny story, or maybe a telling story of myself, is that I was at I think it was an As I Am conference a number of years ago, and they had literally that night before printed out, this is literally, they told me, the first copy of your incredible energy resource, and that was printed in Ireland. And I was passing by their bookstop, as I always do, or their bookshop, about to buy books, and I was like, do you have this available? Can I buy this? And they're like, well, that's just our print copy to show today. And I was like, I need to bring this home with me. Can I buy this? Yeah, so they were like, we'll hold on to it for you. I'll be back after the conference. So I literally have the first print copy. Yeah. So, but that's because I really do honestly believe in the work that you're doing. I suppose maybe then to ask, or maybe a few other questions that came in, for anyone that is unfamiliar with energy as a concept in terms of regulation, how would you define energy safety as a parent, a teacher, maybe an SNA, or any other kind of professional that's working with people, not even people that are neurodivergent, any human being that they're trying to support, or maybe supporting myself if I was coming, I suppose, finding the book and wanting to be like, okay, well, I think this is an incredible resource, but how do I conceptualize for myself, as you were saying earlier, Jack, like how do I concretely say, well, this is what energy means and this is how I can use this if I'm trying to figure out for myself how to use this framework? Where would you start in understanding energy?
I think one of the places we actually start is modeling, talking about energy, because it's kind of an experiential concept, right? And we find that many people just pick it up immediately because they have experiences with energy and people talking about things. But we'll start talking about even just like modeling our own levels, like when we're feeling low energy. And how do we know that? Like, what are the signs that somebody else can pick it up? Oh, my energy is really high right now. How do you know that? What would you see? Like, and so starting to kind of help people understand these different kind of physiological states, but in context, and in the context of observing somebody else. So it's not this judgment of like, I think you're at this energy state and we need to do this thing about it. It's more like, let's just start to understand the concept of energy. Can I tell them about the animal assisted therapy people
Sure.
in England?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is my new favorite way to introduce energy. There's an animal assistance therapy in England, in like the Southwest, I think. And they're emailed us some things because they're going to a conference and wanted to make sure that they could present our things. Every animal in their animal assisted therapy, including miniature ponies and goats, has their own energy meter in the stall. And so when the kids are coming in to work with the animals for animal assisted therapy, they rate the animal's energy. And then they talk about what kind of activity would be a good fit. Like you might come in wanting to walk the horse, but if the horse is super sleepy or like super rammy, like, high energy, maybe that's not a good fit. What energy is a good fit? What activity is a good fit for that energy? And so they taught kids energy through animals, which is brilliant. And then the kids, they transferred it to the children for themselves to be able to, and it's also an amazing way to teach energy when we model on ourselves or animals. Animals are better, but like, because you get this idea that all energy is fine. It all fits somewhere. It just doesn't fit for every activity, right? Like, so we very quickly get into this place of there truly are a place for every energy level. All energy levels fit somewhere.
And I'm just going to add one thing to what you said to make a simple kind of overview of the energy framework. All we do, in essence, is say, where is my energy right now?
Yep.
For me, I'm amped up and fidgety. Where do I want my energy to be for what I'm doing? So engaging in an online podcast where I'm going to be answering questions and talking and discussing, I want it to be amped up and fidgety. So I have a match. I'm well regulated. If I was like settled and calm right now, I wouldn't have a good match for what I'm doing. It would be hard for me to make spoken words. Like when I go low, my mouth motor is not there. And Amy has experienced this, in fact, and we've been on live virtual trainings where I can't physically make speech happen because my energy is not where it needs to be. So our whole framework is, do you have a match for what you are doing, for what you need to be or want to be doing at the time? Or do you not? And if you don't have a match, do you have the understanding and skills to know the things that shift you up and down? That's the main premise behind energy, and all the tools behind it kind of get to supporting that framework and also understanding like a balance of burden. Like, yes, I want regulatory skills for myself and I want to be able to make those shifts in the moment most of the time. But also, if I find myself mismatched all the time, there's things in the environment and about the activities that could probably be modified and adjusted as well. And we want to pay attention to those too in a fair and equitable relationship. It's a give and take.
Right. And do you feel, when you were chatting earlier, sorry, Amy, you were referencing context. I love the person in context resource as well. And even what you just said there, Jack, in relation to like, we're trying to be equitable. It's like all of the other supporting resources, just clear. It's like, I wear glasses. It's like, it's always clearing the focal view, doesn't it? It makes it clearer and clearer if we can use all of these different tools, resources. It just gives clarity. So I suppose, for anyone listening, if they are, are ever lucky enough to have a copy of your incredible resource, where should they start? So say if and I know we said it's kind of a drop off as you're using the tool, but say if they go onto the website for their first introduction to your incredible selves, and I know you have, again, I print everything. I'm probably not helping the environment. Sorry to everybody in the environment. But I'm always printing, but you even have like incredible resources laid out in like, sorry, drop them in like ways to follow, like start here, you need, and I think on number 6 it says, that's like the regulator, it'll say you need to make sure you're following say 1 through 5 before you get to 6. You don't just, I suppose because I've written on these as well, like the power plan, you need to go back and make sure you've done
don't start there.
That's usually our first rule, is that you can almost start anywhere, but you don't start with the plan.
Because you don't have clarity.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, if your listeners go on our website, which is autismlevelup.com, I know you're going to link things. There's a tool tabs at the top. If you click on that tool tab, it will take you to our tools page, and the essentials come up, which are kind of like the key 6 tools and then 3 worksheets that go behind it. And like you pointed out, each one has a cover sheet that describes what the tool is, why it's designed the way it is, things that we would do or encourage people to do while they're using it, and also things we do not want them to do when they're using it, because they're things that we don't want to have happen. And a lot of that is around like approaching things in a way that is, trying to hold somebody to like some sort of neuronormative standard, or something that would be moving more towards control or compliance or a right way, versus this curiosity-driven, individualized exploration that we're really after. So a lot of the do nots are around that control piece, and the do's are around just be in this, like, and really be really very curious. So I would start there. I would start with that. When you click the tools tab, that suite will come up. There are a lot of other tools behind it that you've already pulled some up of, like Bumper and those types of things too. But if people just want to kind of dip their toe into energy, that's the place to do it.
Yeah, and I think some of the most common starting points are just using the energy meter.
Yep.
Or just using the My Energy
And the
form
regulator
to figure out what someone's energy looks like at these various levels. And I think a lot of people start with just the person in context, person profile. Like, so being that careful observer and getting a good idea of that person's profile or your own profile to go forth with everything else is usually a good starting point.
Yeah, it helps people be really responsive partners too, and provide like environmental accommodations and activity modifications, but also just provide good regulatory support as a mutual regulation or co-regulation.
And when we think about relationship, it's so important. Like when you're coming at it from, I'm trying to figure out what it is for this person, rather than I need to show this person how it's supposed to be, it's a completely different relationship. So if you're coming at it from that lens, you truly can't find a poor starting point in this framework, I'd say.
Because you're literally trying to be kind, caring, and supportive of the person in your life, whether professionally or personally. But again, the website is great for, as you say, kind of dipping in and out. But ideally, you, in my opinion, professional opinion and personal, because again, I have two copies, would be that you would actually get the framework. Because for me, I like to have all the information so I can make, like, again, loads of great resources and great guidance on the website. But for me, it's really having all of the information that I can dip in and out, but get the background information and see how it interlinks. And again, you also have lots of the resources for anyone that is thinking about getting the book. Like, it's all printed here for you as well. So if it is a student thinking about it, or a parent or a professional, or say one of our incredible CD&Ts around the country, the HSC, it's a great tool that you can also recommend to families as well. I suppose then I might ask you, because again, I meant to say, I was trying to pull that up when you were chatting earlier, the way that you can actually differentiate the energy meter for children or adults or young people that maybe require maybe more text or less text, more visual. And I suppose that draws me then to, maybe if you don't mind, some of the questions that came in on the question box. So say if there is a parent or a professional that is wondering so I suppose from yourself, this is a question that did actually come in from a parent. And she said, for an autistic person with an intellectual disability who's primarily non-speaking but uses a speech device, how might they introduce or support them, say, to understand how to use the energy meter, or what might you suggest?
So that's a great question. And we do have a range of meters, as you said, in that drive. And some of them are like the 3 levels, like you just showed, that has just animals and very little text. We also encourage people to use objects that are related to different energy levels for people. And it's an example we use often just because it's an easy one, but we had a young person who really loved squishmallows. So we started like pairing the cheetah with when they were really high energy, and the koala with when they were really low energy, just with those two, right? And this young person really started to pick up that this association of this particular squishmallow with these feelings in my body, and you'd see them racing around with the cheetah and like cuddle on the couch with the koala. And like, so we can build those types of understandings for people. We can obviously program vocabulary into an AAC device for somebody who is non-speaking but does have symbolic capacity, right? So can we bring in words that make a lot of sense for them that would represent like a high energy, like, depending on who they are, like you said, Jack really liked all the feels. Like maybe we use like a pow, bam, an explosion at the top for a high energy, and something really chill like at the bottom. And we do have graphic vocabulary for that, because sometimes that's the bridge between that more like concrete object and like a bear sleeping, right? Like it's this kind of word art that sometimes is really powerful for people too. We've had tons of adaptations for kids with individuals with cortical visual impairments. So you'll see some of those in our drive. We have worked with the School for the Blind and actually have tactile meters, and the density and like kind of depth of like the different textures represent different energy levels. And it is amazing to see just what the uptake is. Like if we figure out what the presentation is, it resonates for almost everybody. We can get almost everybody to kind of understand this concept of energy. We just have to get the presentation in a way that's accessible for them.
And I suppose that brings me on to what I was chatting to you about at the top of the call for my gorgeous Jack that's about to make the move from primary to secondary. So I suppose that's, I don't know what it's called in America, but it's he's like going to be 13, going into like,
Yep.
I suppose it's not high school, probably it's middle school.
Middle school. We have a middle school.
So he's about to make the move, and I just want him to, for himself, to feel, brave and autonomous, that he can communicate, what his needs are. So again, I made this little folder because he loves blue and he loves bumper. And then I obviously, because he loves your dinos, and that really resonated. And as you say, I could have maybe adapted it more for him, but this resonated with him, so it was ideal. But I suppose another thing that I did was I used, I think it's called the Regulator, where you gave all the different examples, and I used that to create, if anyone can see on the screen, you'll see this in the video format. I used the Regulator to identify all the different ways that maybe he could be feeling or things that could help him, but also they're in his room. There's also ones that he told me himself that he would like. So what ideally individualized makes sense for him. So there'll be those, and then the ones that are based off of your own resources. But I suppose, is that maybe an example of how you could adapt to make it more individualized? And this, again, potentially could support a person that's more visually orientated to understand more concretely their energy. Would you think, would that something like this potentially be useful in terms of adaptation?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I think one of the things I love about the tools is that once you get it, I love writing. So I like to fill out the tools in writing, and then that lets me process it in my time. And then I can hand that to anyone and they can read it. And so if it's visuals, if it's memes, whatever it is, there's a regulatory component of knowing you have that with you, that even if that teacher that you trust the most isn't there, you still have a way to say, this is what I need. And that's really powerful. We always say that, if someone can leave their education having learned what they need to be able to learn and engage, not like me who left not understanding what the supports I needed were, they can engage in whatever they need to and want to going forward. That is, I think, should be the primary focus of school, is learning all of those things that you have in that bumper binder. Like, when I need to shift my energy up, these are the things that let me do it. When I need to shift my energy down, these are the things I need to do it. If I'm constantly in that mismatch, I know that I might need to advocate for something to change in this environment, that it might not be an environment that is good for me in the long run. And I will have certain non-negotiables in a workplace or in a community environment that, like, it's not worth the fatigue and the things that come from it. So learning that about yourself, like the self-awareness for self-understanding, leading to that kind of self-advocacy, that is, to me, the ultimate goal of education. And so I love that individualization.
Oh, sorry. Oh, thank you. So that draws me then to something that just occurred to me as we were talking. Like there's a I suppose across the world, I'm sure, but in Ireland at the moment, there's a lot of focus on emotion-based school avoidance, or you can call it lots of different things. I suppose that's kind of what it's been called at the moment, as we know, language changes. But that reminds me of myself when I was in, I suppose, what the version is of high school. When I was 16, I dropped out of school for 2 years. I was so in Ireland, up until the age of 16, you do like one major exam. It's called the Junior Cert. Then you have have like, it's like a year of self-discovery called transition year. So you're in 16, 17, or maybe 15, 16, and then 16 to 18, you gear up to do what's called the leaving cert. So that's your exam to get you into college, if you want to go to college or whatever you want to do. But I remember after I did the junior cert, I'd been so, because again, love books, but I was so focused on the learning part, a little bit like yourself, Jack. I'd never understood regulation, never even thought about it. I was just like, oh, I'm just going to do the thing. And then I would end up like with hair falling out, or I'd come out even now routinely with like stress rashes because I can't pick up on the stress that I'm putting on myself. So for me, I would even find this is an incredible resource. And I said that even before I'd hit record. Like, I'm so thankful for the resources that you've developed, and so thankful for our students that are going into schools now or finding it tricky to go into school, for teachers that are listening that are like, how do I support students to come back into school? I think, do you think, is it relevant to say it's not so important about the academics right now, it's the well-being, it's the regulation? Can we support them? And I genuinely, wholeheartedly feel the Autism Level Up framework, the energy framework, would be a tool that all schools should have. And I feel like if that had been around for myself way back many years ago when I was a teenager, I would have been able to conceptualize and say, this is why I can't come to school. This is why it's tricky for me. I feel overwhelmed. This is what I need from school to help me. And school were great, but they didn't know I was autistic. I didn't know I was autistic. But if I could go back in time now, that's what I would do. And even for my teenage daughter, she's doing that leaving cert exam at the moment to get, I suppose, if she would like to go to college, which she wants to be a music teacher. So for her, she would even use this resource. And she's 18 now. She's able to, pull out the manual herself or go on the website and be like, oh, that makes sense to me, or I'm going to do that. So for maybe educators listening, and as you said there, Jack, shouldn't the first protocol be well-being, energy regulation, having felt safety at school? Do you feel maybe that's relevant for, and there's so much focus, which is important on this topic now, of children and teenagers that can't access education at the moment, they feel they can't actually attend. Do you feel that maybe the energy regulation framework has a place there as well?
I'd say yes. I mean, we say relationship first, right? Safety, and then we come in with basic needs being met, and then regulation. And that's the foundation for learning and engagement. And for regulation to be done well, it has to be done in the context of a trusting relationship with somebody else. And as you've said, there's work to be done in regulation. It's not just like put this gym and spa or this cozy corner and this active place in a classroom. It's, how do we use this? How do we access this? And I think I was talking to somebody earlier today, and Jacquelyn has a phrase that you say all the time where, like, if we could create a culture in a school classroom where the only norm is difference, like the expectation is individual people will have individual needs and be able to meet those needs to be able to engage in learning. That's really what we're after. And so this idea, to your question, of creating something like a regulation framework like energy, we call it a tier 1 intervention in the United States, where it's just what happens in the classroom, regardless of neurotype. Every child has access to this type of learning, this type of knowledge, and these type of tools and resources, not just kids with identified support needs or children who are transitioning back into school after having, a period being out because of regulation challenges and things, but everybody's doing it. That is where school becomes a safer, more comfortable place. Like, if that's truly the culture of the classroom.
The other thing I would say is, in terms of well-being, if you have these tools to lay this out, like, okay, here's my profile, and here's the profile of this environment or this activity, and look at all these places where it's mismatched, like, this is the problem. I'm not the problem. There's a mental health component of understanding the person's profile in the context of the environment and why it is, like, why school was like that for you. It's not because you are broken or something's just wrong with you. It's your profile in the context of this environment had all these mismatches, and you didn't know what you needed, and you didn't know what, no one around you perhaps knew what the changes could be to help support you and probably a wider array of students. And so that leads people to believe like it's something wrong with me. And that's not a path that we want any young person to go down. We want them to just understand the only norm is difference. And right now, the different way I need to do something isn't being met. So let's figure that out. On both sides, like, I might have some tools I can use, but also something might need to change in this environment. And we can problem solve that. Like, we're not always going to get it right the first time, but if we have partners around us who are willing to continue to try, that's what we want.
And just for really practical for your listeners, that person in context tool can be really useful for having that kind of discovery and conversation. We also have a tool on the website called the Classroom Regulator, which looks at like a young person can go into the classroom and look at like different places to sit in the classroom, like what feels good, what doesn't feel good, different types of lighting in the classroom, different instructional techniques that teachers could use, whether it's like highly didactic or, individual reading, but it goes through basically like a classroom day, and kids can honestly pick apart like what is not working for them and also what is working for them. And it creates.
We came into a middle school and did an assembly, like a whole school assembly. And we like had them rate different aspects of the classroom instruction. But the beautiful thing is when you have the entire grade saying, oh, I love group work, and someone else is like, that is the worst, and they see it. That's how you create the understanding that different brains need different things in a natural way, not just like, we have some members of our class whose brains are different. That especially when you get into like middle school and high school, everyone's like, okay, yeah, okay, yep, whatever. And like they could be very accepting of it and fine with it, but if they don't see it live in action, it's not the same. It's not experiential in that way. So many people, when they think about like having like neuro-inclusive spaces, I mean, they think about spending like thousands of dollars to make changes, and it's not really always about that. It's not usually about that. It's very small things that can have a big difference for someone. So it's important to see those kinds of ideas.
And to actually just ask people what would actually help, and then could you get a consensus potentially, or even try and include everyone's needs as much as you could. I suppose then just to close off, I suppose maybe as one other question, I'm just thinking about teenagers. So say if you're an educator or you're a parent or you're the teenager and you're saying, okay, I really need to use these tools, but I would just know through the different kind of projects I've developed over the years, different organizations I'd work in, teenagers specifically would give the feedback that they like the resources to be discreet. Do you feel, is there a way for teenagers to use these incredible resources in a way that would suit their profile and just awareness, I suppose, socially, that they might like the resources to be more discreet?
Absolutely. I think, we absolutely support young people who have all sorts of notes in their phone that they use as kind of an organizer for them in terms of kind of different energy levels, different tools that they use, just quick access. We know actually adults, I don't know if we know any teenagers who do it, but who have playlists in their like Spotify accounts that link to different energy levels. Like, so if they're feeling low and they need to go high, they have a specific playlist for that. It's like around beats per minute, particularly is how they've designed that. There's lots of ways to make this accessible to an individual in a way that they're comfortable with.
And again, if we do that thing where we're just doing it in the whole class, it's discreet because it's just what everyone does. And I think that is an important message. Like, this is ideal, right? Like, because people don't grow up like this, but if we grow up in that culture of the only norm is difference, we're good to go. And I think teenagers would probably be the first to tell you, like, that's not what I need. This is what I need. If we had that culture. It's not always the case. We know people don't have that privilege. People grow up masking. People grow up trying to blend in, trying to figure out what the rules are supposed to be. And it's hard. Like, I want to acknowledge too that if you don't feel like you can use these tools and you do feel like it's too different and it stands out, like it's okay to be there too.
Right.
Like, that is a completely reasonable and realistic place to be for someone.
And I think the other part to just kind of build on what you're saying, because I was talking about like the notes in the phone and the playlists and things, which can be quite discreet. And they can discover what they're comfortable with using something like our regulator framework to figure out, like, these are things I'm comfortable using in this environment or this other environment. But we often show a slide in one of our trainings, which was in a high school classroom, and they have two huge Post-it notes. And one says, when I'm stressed, you can. And the other one says, when I'm stressed, I can. And so, and they generate the list as a whole class, and it's a general education environment. And the expectation is students will access tools and resources when they're not well regulated, especially if their energy, the stress kind of seems like with energy is higher than it needs to be, but it can be lower too. But And that the teacher can help anybody use those. Again, not only the kids who have identified support needs and education plans, it just becomes the culture of the classroom.
They co-construct those lists over the course of the year as they learn new strategies, they share them with their class. So again, building the culture is important too. We don't want to put all the burden on that one person who feels like out of place. Like we want to get less people that feel the need to be discreet about it, but also I would never like marginalize or discredit the fact that that's not reality. And there are so many people who feel they need to be discreet for their own safety even.
Right.
And there are ways to do that too.
Okay, one more story about someone who wasn't discreet at all. It was a high schooler in Australia who loved the energy meter concept. It was like the first thing that she felt really resonated with her to support her regulation. She was so excited about it. General education student, autistic young woman, general education student, took a public speaking class. She did her public speaking like end of semester project on the energy meter, and like she presented the whole thing, and she had all the other students, the general education public speaking students, make their own meters. And we had like this email of all these like high schoolers from this public speaking class. And so like sometimes like when you think you need to be discreet, you really don't, because they were all in on it. We got some really interesting meters from high schoolers.
That's so cool. And I suppose that just reminds me again, as I was listening to you both speaking, so really this is a framework that you can adapt however you need to, because the key is that it makes sense to you, that you could use this as a framework to help you understand yourself or help you understand your child, but you can individualize it to the way that you need to, the way that, say, in a very simplistic way, I've maybe done that for my gorgeous Jack, but as he gets older, my goal is that he can do these things for himself, because I'm there to support scaffold, but I know he's soon to be a teenager who won't want mom lingering, he'll want to do his own thing. But I suppose just to close out, I just wanted to say a huge, I cannot thank you both enough. I don't know, are you fans of Michael Jackson? But I feel like I've met like the equivalent of our time in energy regulation, the Michael Jacksons. I don't know if that's relevant to anyone. I just think he's amazing. Did you watch his movie recently?
Off to Moonwalk.
Yeah, I watched it twice. I just think he's phenomenal. So whoever your like idea of like mega stars of people that have influenced you positively, that's who you both are to me. I know that's who you are to many people around the world.
Somebody nominated us for that. We were like, this is the most ultimate thing ever.
International badass.
Oh,
something.
Cool.
So,
okay, well then maybe that's the international badasses of the energy regulation community. I actually think you are, but but I think you are. But listen, a huge thanks for creating this resource that has saved my energy many times over, but has also helped me as a parent to be the best version of, I would say, the mom that I can be, but also as a professional. I know all the schools that are very happy to read the book when I bring it out and about. Now I can bring out my other copy, keep my, as I call my precious one at home. But I just want to say, I'm like, don't be reading my notes. I'm like, what was I writing? It could be one of those late night, being like, that's another thought I have on this that nobody will ever read, but then at every school I'm going to read it. But again, huge thanks to yourselves. I don't even think you probably realize the impact that you both genuinely have had on so many, I would say must be hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people all around the world. And so I don't need to overwhelm anyone with my own like, fandom of yourselves, but honestly, I see it in practice, the work that you're doing, the impact that it's having here in Ireland. I have the privilege of going into schools talking about lived experience, autism, whatever, and I'll often go in and there'll be like notice boards of all of your work up there where they're trying to support the school community broadly and not just the autism classes, to understand what it is that you're trying to achieve. And I absolutely believe that you are achieving it, because it's having a mega impact here in Ireland. I know it is across the world online, because I get to sometimes see the incredible photos and things that people are sharing. So huge thanks from myself, I know from all of our listeners. And again, this incredible resource is available from Outside the Box Learning Resource. I think it's otb.ie, and they've actually given me a discount code, which I'll put in the description of this podcast for, I think it's 10% off. I better say that. I think it's 10% off. So you'll find out once you use the discount code if you'd like to purchase the resource. But again, huge thanks to both of yourselves for spending a little bit of time with myself today. I feel like I've just met the most incredible people that I've been a fan of for many years. So huge thanks to yourselves, and I know on behalf of all of our listeners. So thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
Wait, can I say one closing thing?
Oh, wait.
Sure, yeah.
We're accepting visas, please. If you have visas for us, please. That's it.
Yeah, visa. Oh, yeah. God, I might know a person that might know a person. You never know. But listen, thank you so much, and thanks to everyone for listening. Thank you.
Bye.